Cool. So yeah, I've started the recording. So if people do have questions, just shout out just so we can ask. So on the actual Google Classroom, which I'm going to show you on screen now, if you go to the Haunted House Group project, there's a file here called Hardsurface Showcase. He's just going to show you. He's just got some of the examples of what I'm going to do today. So the Hardsurface Modelling is probably something not a lot of you have actually done. You probably heard me go on about it. It was not something you lot probably done before. So if we just grab all these, press 1. Right, so these are all squares, right? So we can see they're all squares. Now, if we press 1 on our keyboards to stay squares, we do know if you press 3, it shows you what the smoothed out version of them will be. So we grab all these, press 3, they all go completely different. So this is what a lot of hard surface stuff is. It's taking these solid objects and then making them into more, well, changing the way they look. So hard surface is stuff like armor, or things that are not organic, things that are man-made. That's how you would model them, so they look like this. Because we don't want to see, if we go to say this, for example, say you're making bits and pieces for, I don't know, say a weapon. You wouldn't have it so you've just got straight polygons next to each other because it looks too fake. In order to make stuff look a little bit more realistic, you would want to make sure there's a nice sort of smooth gradient between the two. You can do that with this. So notice how when I click off of it, see how it's not really sharp near these corners. If I turn the smoothness up a little bit, you can kind of see it better. So notice how I know they're connected, but it's not like an immediate, like two polygons just connected, very, very sharp angles. If you need sharp angles, it's absolutely fine, but it's not typical, you'll find that. And again, this one's also a square. So I'm going to go through all of these and kind of show you what they all mean. For now, we can just ignore this UV editor because you don't really need it. So we'll start off with the first one. So just creating a general square like this. Move it up. So what we're saying is this is just a 6-sided square. You could use this for a crate if you wanted. This could be your low poly crate, right? The problem is, if you were to take this into something like Mudbox or ZBrush, and you wanted to increase the poly count to draw detail on it, what will happen is it'll just go and turn into a cube, okay? That's because, if we set the 2 view up, what happens is, this point here, so when you're creating extra geometry, like this, what it does is it creates the point here, and it'll split it up, so it'll create a point here, a point here, and a point here, and a point along all 3 of the axes it's attached to. And what it does is it then tries to calculate, okay, so this point is here. It's also near here. So it's going to be connected to here and along these. It's going to try and pull itself along all of these axes evenly. And it ends up becoming a circle because obviously everything's going towards the middle. So it's not really helpful because if you're trying to, paint detail on a box and every time you keep increasing the poly count, it becomes this, then it doesn't really help, right? You can just add dimensions to it like this, which is fine. The only problem is it evenly distributes them, which is, again, fair enough. You don't need to have it do that, but that's also really difficult to then try and optimize. So if you're taking this in, you kind of want to optimize the model. So rather than having, if you just add dimensions, like say twice, for example, and then do it, it still rounds the edges off a lot more, which again, you've wasted, there's loads of detail here that's not being used. So, just going to undo all that. Okay. So, what we like to do, so this is the first one, which I believe is this one. So that's what happens if you don't put any hard surface edges in. I'm just going to move this. Let me move you. Okay. This is our second one, right? So the second one, we're going to create another box in the middle. So it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. But what happens is, if you put in what's called hard surface edges, you can do it in a number of ways. You could do it by just going straight in the middle. Now, if you hold Control on multi-cut, you do get this line. I think most people know that. What you might not know is if you hold Shift as well, it does it in increments. So it doesn't just slide freely. if you hold shift, it will actually jump to points. So 3, 4, 5, we'll do in the middle, roughly in the middle, roughly in the middle, like that. Okay. Now if we increase the poly count on this one, notice how it's still okay. It's slightly rounded. It looks like a big fat cushion rather than anything else, but it's still pretty rounded. Right. So I'm just gonna give one of these for now. Yes, I want to click on the object. So notice how we've increased the poly count. So again, we had one line in the middle. So if we go to 0, so we've got a point here, a point here, and a point here. So when we add a subdivision, it's going to add a point there and a point there, and then it's going to try and pull these in. So creating this can help, but also it's going to just make a sort of rounded cube, which again might be what you want, but it's not 100% necessary. So that's our number 2 there. Don't know why I keep deleting them, but hey ho. That's what happens in the morning. So this is kind of what you want to do. So if you're ever creating you know, something that you want to work as a hard surface, like a box, for example, and then you want to take it into a 3D modeling package like Mudbox or ZBrush or whatever, what you want to do is you want to start getting really close into these edges, like this. You would normally go in and do this a little bit more accurately than what I'm doing, but I'm just showing you as an example. Have I got everything? I think there's 6. Yep, they're all there, right? So now what happens if we go in and try to, you know, increase this. So if we go to object mode, click on it, and then increase the smoothness, no matter what we do, it just stays nice and smooth as a cube. But if we go in, we've noticed we've got these really nice soft edges. They don't look super harsh. Like here, they're proper harsh. If you put your hand on that in real life, you'd slice your fingers off. But what we can do is if we just press 3, just click off a bit, notice how it's rounded the edges a little bit. It's just giving you an approximation here of what's going to happen. So that's what you want to do, because then no matter what you do, your corners where you've got these stronger green areas of where all the lines are concentrated, they're going to be really useful because they're going to maintain the shape across the whole thing. Okay, so that's kind of what you want to try and achieve. Now, if you, I don't know, wanted to make them slightly bigger, or you wanted to cheat and you were like, oh, I don't want to go in and try and draw them all, that sounds like a headache, you can get in a way with doing something else. So that was that one. If you want, you can just grab all the edges on your shape. Just going to cheat a little bit, just go yoink. Like that. Grab all the edges, right? Use the bevel tool. What bevel tool does is it basically will take one of these lines like this, and it just cuts it in half. Now, bevel doesn't just have to be a, you know, like that. You've created, you know, some sort of rhombus dice shape, right? If you decrease the fraction here, I'm going to say set it to 0.1, 0.05, 0.01. That's too small. 0.02. You can go in and change it. 0.04. Why not? Ah, yeah, that's probably better. 0.04, right? Notice how it's different to this one here. Because we were doing them over the top, it created squares in the corners, not triangles, which is fine. So it does change the overall shape though. So I've created these ones, so these are 0.04. If you go to segments or depth can help a little bit, but it doesn't really do a whole lot with this sort of shape. You can turn chamfer off or on. So if you want to set it to using squares, you can turn it to the chamfer off, and it's fine. If you want to do chamfer on, it'll change it as well. But if you want to do chamfer on, I would recommend changing your segments to 2. That way your corners, even though they're not squares, they stay as triangles. So chamfer off, on. So notice how it's a little subtle difference. It's not massive, but it will change the shape of it. So if I press 3, right, chamfer off looks like this. Chamfer on will change it to more of a dice shape. Just click off of it, right? So if I go back to my overall shape, undo, 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 undo. go to my edges, like this, and maybe make the chamfer just a wee bit bigger, like a 0.1 or something. Then I go in and press, not 3, Jesus, that's going to be too big. Then change this to a 3. You get this sort of pillowy dice shape, so your corners are nice and rounded still, but because it's trying to wrap it around there, it's a little bit different. If you wanted to go in and change that, obviously change it to a 2. Grab all your edges, set this to 2. Grab all my edges. 2 is a good one to work with. The only problem is sometimes you can get confused, because if you start changing stuff, it will start to edit it. So if we go back to bevel, you can just manipulate it and see what your shape's going to do and look like. So change segments to 2, increase the fraction a little bit, turn chamfer on and off, increase your segments to something like that. And there you go, you've got this sort of rounded dice shape. So again, entirely how you want to work the corners and everything. You can change the shape you're making entirely. So that's another one for you to look out for. So the hard surface modelling, it is all about experimentation. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to duplicate this shape here. The easiest way to do that is just hold shift and move one over here. So when we've got a shape like this and you're trying to make something maybe like this, you don't really want to work in this view, so the number 1 view, because it's really hard to kind of see what you're doing. So what I like to do is I normally like to work in 2. Now, if you work in 1 and you just start, you know, extruding shapes out like this, you can't really see what's happening, right? So if you press 2, oh, that's not the shape I wanted. It looks like a broken finger, okay? But what you can do, if you're using this sort of 2 view here, you can go in, you can kind of see the shapes you're clicking on here. What I'm going to do is, I don't know, I'm going to scale it in. So I'm going to click on here, scale it in, like that. Scale it in again, just so I've got that nice hard surface. Pull it out a little bit like that, and then extrude it out again. Don't know why it went to the side. There we go. Now, it looks a bit weird for the time being, but adding in these control edges everywhere will help you. So, for example, say I've got this, it looks like a broken thumb or whatever. It looks weird, and we don't want to talk about it. If you just extrude it out a little bit more, it's going to automatically show you what your shapes are doing. And then, oh, I don't want it rounded at the top, so I can just scale it in a little bit more. And we've created this shape. You can check it on the 3, see what it looks like. And then you can do it with everything else. So you can, I don't know, grab maybe these 2 shapes here. I'm like, actually, I want to extrude these out. So now I've created this flat. Oh, I didn't want that. But if I go to 2 view, okay, I can see exactly what's happening. So what I want to do is create one of these and then create that up. Or maybe not even that. Maybe I didn't want to do that. Maybe I want to grab all these and then create a shape that goes up like this. So you can create a little hole in there, and you don't have to worry about, oh, well, you know, my shape looks nothing like that from the outside. This looks like, you know, a villager from Minecraft at the minute, with a hole in his head. Whereas if you obviously smooth it out, it looks completely different. Maybe you want to add more detail in here. Well, you can always go back and go, actually, I'm going to, I don't know, we're going to go face, we're going to go multi-cut. We're going to create a multi-cut around here, and around here. Now, the problem is sometimes on multi-cuts it will not let you cut multi-cut on the corners. Sometimes it will. Depends entirely on the shape you're making. I'm going to go in, grab this face here. No, I don't want multi-cut on. Face, extrude inwards, and then we can press 3. And now we can see it's a lot harder. Or if we go in and create another multi-cut around here. Always check between your views as well. So if I now, even though it's on smooth view, if I increase that poly count again, notice how it looks like it's a man-made shape. It looks like something you'd find in a hardware section of B&Q, right? But again, the shape we've made originally is this. And there are some broken polygons in there, but that's fine, because I'm going to delete this now. So, unwrapping stuff as well, when you're hard surfacing, is not going to be as easy as just going in and going, oh, you know what, I'm just going to create cylinder, it's going to be fine. It's really going to be difficult. So, for example, say I'm going to just create this shape. We're going to make something really stupid here, just to try and prove a point. So we go in here, and we go, add dimensions, and then I'm going to grab this. I don't know. This is my hard surface shape here. We're going to do this. I'm going to, I don't know, just doing this on the fly because I'm a madman. One of these, drop it down a little bit, dig it down, shoot this one up, and then I'm going to grab these, pull them out a little bit, shrink them down, pull that out. Right, this is my shape. I don't know what it is. It looks like some sort of abstract elephant, but regardless. Notice how on the UV map, the entire time I changed it, it just added the dimensions. It didn't add anything to the shape. It will not automatically unmap my object, right? Check everything. Yeah, there's some reds on there, which is absolutely fine, because if we go to the UV checker view, oh no, TV static. So we know the UV's wrong because it, you know, it needs an epilepsy warning. So what we would normally do is I would primarily just go bin. Just bin the UV. We don't need it for the time being. What elephants are you seeing? The ones in my dreams, they look like this. They scare me. So you're probably wondering what this thing in the background is, and it'll make sense in a minute. So in order to do this, what I would ideally do is, right, there's so many complex shapes. Do I want to try and unwrap this whole thing or not? Probably not. Easiest way, get rid of all the UVs. If your shape's really complex like this, rather than doing it individually, just grab everything and then just go to camera based and it'll just create this, right? This isn't your UV because it will look good from one angle and no other angles. For example, my UV map is perfect. It does not need changing at all. I do not know how to feel about the deck. A bit that. They look like they can grow. Yes, this looks like it can grow. But notice how I've camera based it and it's like, oh, this looks perfect. It's like all my UVs are there, and all of a sudden, so you turn to the side, it just completely looks wonky and broken, which is not what we want. But it doesn't matter because all we've done is we've taken all the polygons on the object and they're now on here, which is perfectly fine. We can just move this out of existence now. So I've shown you guys before about how to use the next tools I'm going to show you. So go UV Toolkit. What we're going to do is we're going to break this down to separate objects, and we're going to show you how to do stuff. So because everything now has a UV, or has UVs on here, what we can start doing is we don't have to go in and go create planar, because you're going to be here all day, okay? What you can do is you can start using cut and sew. Cut and sew is your best friend in this instance because it allows you to go in and make your own cuts and unfold things your own way, rather than relying on the computer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go like this. So my shape, for example, I want this to be separate. So I'm going to just grab the edges around this thing, click on cut. Now if we zoom in, you should see that this orange line is going to get a little bit brighter. That means it's worked. So now it's a white line instead of blue. So what this means now is if I go to UV and then UV shell, this is now separate and I can move it around. So it's not attached to this. Okay? Go to edge again, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut along. Which edge do I not want to see? We'll go along this one. So I'm just going to click on that. So click, 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 and then 1, 2, 3. So what this is going to do is it's going to cut along this line here. Now I've been doing this for a long time, so I kind of know where I want it to go. And cut that. Now what I can do is you can go in and do this separately and work it all out. It's absolutely fine. You can sew stuff together, which I'll show you in a second. But what this is going to now allow me to do, rather than planar mapping everything and sticking it together, because I've created the cut mark along here where I want everything to open, if I just go to unfold and unfold it, it'll basically try and get the job done. Try legacy, unfold. Oh, I did not enjoy that. So I've missed something. Where have I missed? So it should unfold along. And you can go back in and fix stuff. So say, oh, this edge here doesn't need to be the one that's cut. Just go back in and click sew, and it'll just fix it. Maybe I want to cut along there. UV shell, unfold, not legacy. If for some reason your thing doesn't look like it's working, just hold shift and click unfold and it'll bring up this menu. There's 2 unfolding methods built into Maya. You can unfold 3D and Legacy. Legacy does work for some things, but for some reason sometimes it doesn't. I do not know why. Right, so that should, in theory, unfold from here, so it should unfold along here and outwards. So is there a bit that I've missed? Oh, here, of course. Under here. Cut there. It's a little better. Sometimes you just go into an object thinking, nah, it's not working, it doesn't look right. You can go in and do automatic folds and stuff, it's absolutely fine. You can go in and try and work it out, but do not, for the love of God, just go in and go, oh, I'm going to grab all these, planar, I'm going to grab all the other shapes, planar. It's going to take you absolutely ages, because if you try unfolding that on its own, it's going to take you forever. If we do check it though, it is kind of even across the whole surface. Looks a bit odd, but it's fine. So some shapes are going to be a little bit more difficult. Stuff like this, you could get away with unfolding. You know, stuff like this side panel, rather than planar mapping it, you could just cut along the edge and then just unfold it. So unfolding is your best friend, especially for weird stuff. Now the reason I'm showing you unfold, if we just get rid of the monstrous shape, is we brought over Billy here. So Billy, which I will create a copy of, and we'll show you how I unwrapped him. Stuff like this is probably a little bit more difficult to unwrap. I'll just edit him slightly. So we'll bin his UVs off. Go to, I don't know, let's make, what can we do? Let's grab all of his faces here. Let's pull them slightly further forward. Rotate them slightly. Then I'm going to pull it down, rotate it. Pull it down. Maybe scale it in. Now it looks like a finger that's been very, very broken. Right? Just move this like that. Cool. So this is a very awkward shape to try and unwrap. He looks upset. He does look upset, you're right. But we're going to fix that. So again, object mode, click on this. So stuff like the one I previously shown you, right? Cutting might not work for everything. It might do, depends on how you want to do it. But for this, cutting is going to be massively better. So he's got no UVs, camera based, we've got it. What we can do is very simply, rather than trying to cylindrical unwrap, so we just grab all of this, grab everything and go create cylindrical unwrap. You basically got it T-posing, which is fine. Gareth is too quirky for Maya. I'm not too quirky for Maya, stop bullying me. So unfold. It's like the Eye of Sauron. I don't like it, right? But notice how it's tried to cut its own shape in, right? Why is it? It's not letting me spin around. Notice what it's done, right? So it's gone from sort of here. Let's try and find where it starts. So it's gone, for some reason it's gone down here, along, and it's thinking, yeah, this is the right shape. And it's gone back, down, through a circle, up, and then just stops there. That's all it's done, right? So this clearly is not gonna work. Okay, so if you try unthinking that, it just looks a mess. No, we don't like that. So if you'll let me undo everything. Why are you not letting me do anything? Get rid of the UVs. Let's try this again. So go up. Just delete the UVs. What's it doing? Delete. There we go. Object mode. Camera based. Now what we do is we go into our UV toolkit. Go to edge, and what we're going to do is we're going to cut off the caps at the bottom, right? So double click around the circle there and click cut. Double click around the circle here and click cut. Then we can just find where we want to hide our seams. I'm going to stick it straight up the middle, like that. Now it will add into these semicircles. We don't need to have them there, so just bin them. So we've got this nice straight line up the middle. Click cut. Now what this is going to allow us to do is if we go to UV shell, click on this middle bit, and just click unfold. we've got a nice unwrap, and it's going to be even across the whole thing. Granted, it doesn't look that great at the minute because it's on an angle, but we can always adjust that. So there you go, minimal warping across the whole thing. So if you were to paint from the bottom to the top, you could do a straight line, and it would. The only thing you would have to really do is check the middle where the seam is, and then because we've unwrapped that and we've done all that, we just have to go to these two, click on fold. They're now done. And remember to set everything to the same size. So grab one of your objects and click on get, highlight everything and click on set, and then what you can do is you can, I'd say best thing to do after this is orient shells, just so it tries and straightens them to the best it can. You can lay out stuff, the only problem is it does orient the shells. Go back and set things. So for this instance, what you might want to do is start going in and manually scaling stuff to fit on your page, right? So with this, what I would do is typically I would move this up here, this here. But I've got all this wasted room, so it's not advised, but if you've got an object like this is the only thing you're putting on your texture map, right? Use as much as you can. Or if you've got another object that you could add into this, so say you've got this and then there's something else, you could technically get them to share the texture map. It's absolutely fine. Just be careful. But if you've got an object like this, I would say try and maybe make it as, you know, use as much as you can. If the object could be split somewhere else, so say you wanted to, along here, for example, cut it like that. We've got two UV shells here. Then if we lay, so if we try and scale them all, so set everything to the same thing, and then try moving them out, we can use more of our texture maps. So just stop clicking on that one, stop clicking on that one, move you to there. You can do that. It's not advised, especially for objects that do carry on in a straight line, but if you're realizing that one of your objects is massive, this isn't a bad way to go about it if you're using something like Substance Painter. Because Substance Painter, there are ways and means of which you can get this line to immediately follow this line, okay? Doesn't really help when you're starting out, but if your object is like this really long, weird, spindly finger thing, and you're like, oh, my texture map's not looking that great, you can break it up like this. It's just not advised in all cases, so just be careful with it, that's all I can say. So that's that. Has anyone got any questions? You can speak out, obviously, if you want to talk about stuff, just keep the language PG, because you're on video. Or you can type in chat, I'm not really that bothered about how you ask your questions. No one? No one's got a question? Okay, I'm okay, I think. Sweet. Should be fine. Cool. So yeah, hard surface stuff, it's quite fun. It's one of them things of you will use it every now and then, but you won't use it for everything. So for your projects itself, so stuff like vases or tables and chairs, you would use this for. Okay, so I was going to show you sewing as well. So the sewing tool is important as well. Would you recommend we use camera based and then unfold from there? Yeah, so camera based, it just means that everything gets unwrapped, it gets UV'd all at once. So it does help. I know James uses that technique a lot, but if you just go in and go circle and then circle, you might miss a bit, and then there's bits of your model that are missing. Whereas if you grab the object and camera base it, all of your UVs are going to be here, so you're going to see it. So you're going to see if anything's missing. Another thing you can do as well, say you were wanting to, I don't know, you would want to attach this to this top bit, right? So just move this shell out of the way. So what I want to do is I want this to attach to this, right? So if you notice as I go along here, the red line on here will change as well, because what happens is the two red lines are connected. So on the model, you can do it on the model as well. You can go along and just move the mouse along, and it will show you on the UV as well where them 2 points connect. Say for example, I wanted to, I don't know, I want this to connect to here because I want the model just to flow through. You can do that. There's a very easy way of doing it. You just click on one of the edges and then you can click on, where are you? Stitch together. Stitch together. You can use sew. It does do this. So it will create, you just have to unfold it again. But if you've already unfolded it, all you have to do is go stitch together. You can go A to B, which will stitch the first object to the second one, or B to A, which will move the other one. I would say mostly stick with A to B. It doesn't really matter, but stick it together. Now that has actually rotated that as well, so if we turn on the UV view, you will see that this will rotate. So it automatically adjusts, so don't have to worry about it trying to, you know, undo all your unfolding. If you stitch stuff together, it won't, but if you sew stuff together, it will. Also, say, for example, oh no, I've accidentally put in a cut along here, and it's messed everything up. All you have to do is just click on the edge itself, and then click sew, and it will fix it. The problem is when you get to stuff like this, so you're trying to sew this together, and then you sew this together, it's like, oh no, it's all broken. Especially when you try and unfold it. It just creates nightmare monsters like that. It looks sad. So we'll undo all that. If we go back in UV shell and unfold this, it's not going to do much. It's melting. It is melting. It's not having a good time. Has anyone else got anything they want us to show? Or anything they want me to show? You won't use this, yeah, I was just saying before, you would use this for stuff like vases, or you would use this for stuff that's like really man-made, so kitchen countertops. So, for example, say, bye Billy, I'm sorry Billy, you're going Billy. So say you were doing a kitchen countertop, we don't want to see you guys just go, okay, I'm going to make a kitchen countertop, cool. Just close this UV editor for now, cool, okay, let's go with kitchen countertop. I would obviously have a reference image open of what I'm trying to do, but for now I'm just going off an image based in my head. Something like this. Get rid of that square. I wouldn't just go with something that looks like this and go, oh, that's my kitchen countertop. Because no kitchen countertop is going to have this. You know, even wooden boards that you use for stuff wouldn't have that. Or if you're making, I don't know, table and chairs, right? You wouldn't just go in and create something like, let's have a look. Let's go to my modeling toolkit, let's go to multi-cut, so I'm going to something like this, right? Grab the faces, I can get rid of this edge here because I don't need it. This is another thing as well you'll notice with your models. If you just hit delete on a load of edges, it won't actually get rid of the vertexes, which is stupid. If you hold control and delete, it will. So that's also a useful tip. If you find your model has loads of useless polygons in it, or loads of useless vertexes or points or whatever, make sure you're using control delete to get rid of stuff. So I'm just going to extrude that down. So I'm going to say this is my table, right? Now rather than me trying to make the table like that, you can actually use the symmetry tool, okay? So if we click on the object, go to symmetry tool, which is this one here, maybe bring it in a little bit. That's cool. Click symmetry again, change it to Y or Z, positive direction. Oh, it's because I didn't click on it separately. Hang on, so click on that. Whoop. You have to click off of it and then back onto it, which I don't understand why. But Maya will be Maya. So now you've got a perfect table, and you can go back in and just get rid of these edges around the middle. Like that, right? That's your table. That's also an effective way of making it, right? I don't want to see people just going, okay, this is my table, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press, oh, I need loads of polygons. Oh no. Oh, well, this is my table, I'm finished. Because I have had people hand in tables like this, they've gone, that's my high poly, what do you mean? What do you mean it doesn't look good? It's my high poly model. How dare you say that my table doesn't look good? How dare you say my table doesn't look like a melty hell table, or it looks like a, you know, a child's plaything? How dare you say that's insulting? Can't believe you say that. Right? Even if you smooth the crap out of it, it still looks wrong, right? So just be careful with how you're doing stuff. So just go in with your little, you know, your face mode, go with your multi-cut and just cut along things that need to be cut along. Now we're going to see that obviously I've not really moved the faces correctly, but it's fine. I'm going to go back in and move them more. Like that. Oh, and around the top as well. I've not done it here. Or here. Right. So I could have done that a lot easier just by going in and going. So if we hold 3 now. Oh, this table leg looks really cool. But notice how it's still got that nice sharp edge, but it's not so sharp you could cut someone with it. You know, you could use the sharp one as a low poly, but you wouldn't want to use it for like your high poly sculpts, okay? Because it's so super contrasty, it looks like it hurt, but nice smooth edge. And you can go back in and fix it however you want. I'm just gonna do all that. Something like a fridge. Okay, let's go with a fridge just while I'm here. So square. We're gonna make it a bit wider. Grab the face, pull it up. Grab this one out here. So I want to make sure I'm in object mode. My object is set to edit pivot. Should let me set it to the middle of the object. Why are you not letting me set it to the middle of the object component? So you reset pivot, it should just automatically move it. There we go. Right. Cool box. So this is our basic fridge, right? So we don't want to go in. So most fridges, if we follow reference image, they're not super square like this. You know, they've normally got some slight curves on them. So we'll go around the outside and grab these, grab everything. Like that. We'll give it a little bevel. For 2 seconds like that. If we press 3, it's a little bit better. Now what we can do is we could start cutting in. So what I could do is I could maybe go back into this view, grab my face option, go in with the multi-cut, create a multi-cut sort of here. Could go around this edge here. Now this is something that not a lot of people use. If you want to add split detail along these, just click bevel again. Set your fraction to whatever it is, so maybe 0.1. Segments, split into 2. And make that a little bit smaller, so 0.03. There we go. Right. Go back into our edge mode. We can grab all of these along here. Ooh, tell you what I do need to do. I need to add the actual door itself. So I'm only cutting along here. Edge. Bevel that. So 0.03 or 4, 2. 0.2. Create 2 segments. Sweet. Edge. Grab that edge. Just pull it in slightly. Ever so slightly. And I'm going to grab. I need to edit this so it's not. No. Why do you not want to work? Like that. And then what we want to do is grab all these. shrinky dink them a little bit. Like that. Just so we've created that sort of separation. So it doesn't really show that much when you click on it like in this view. But we are starting to get the shape there. So maybe it's not gone in enough on this edge. So we can again just go in. We can, maybe there's not enough of a pull in here. So I'm going to go along here. And now we're going to bevel it again. Create a deeper fraction like that. Depth doesn't do a whole lot, which is fine. Chamfer on. So it hasn't done a whole lot, which is fine. Looking at a 1, undo. Maybe we can grab this vertex here. I'm just going to align it with everything else. Whoop, no, move. Then we're going to pull all these in, so we're going to grab our edges again. Obviously spend a lot more time than I'm currently doing this. So we're sort of getting there. You see how that looks more like a fridge now? I like it. Cheers, Max, man. That's good to know. Or you could just, you could even go even better than that. Don't be so cool, Max. Standing bed. Man, if your pillows are that big, I worry. You could do it that way. You could also model the separate components. Obviously, you would use a reference image and not just go based what you're seeing. But that's it. Has anyone got any last minute questions before I, start to close this off? Oh, there is one thing I do want to show you as well. So, another thing you might want to do is add like surface level details, not just like big chunks of details. So, go to our normal view like this, right? What I'm going to do, grab this face in here. We're going to just create one of these like that. So go to our 3 view. Or 2 view. Right, so we've got that. We're then going to pull it in a little bit more, pull it in a little bit more, up like that, and then pull it up. So we've got this, one of these. And it's nice that it snaps just straight into place like that. Cool. So we've got this weird shape here. What if I wanted to create like a dip around here, just so it follows the curve of the actual hole? So it's going to be rounded, but I want it to follow this, so it's like got a groove in it. We do go U1, create a. You won't really do it with a multi-cut. We've got a face. If you try doing a multi-cut around here, it sometimes will not work. Luckily, we've got an edge we can work with, so I'm going to start it maybe here. Okay. So rather than me trying to cut in a multi-cut shape along this whole thing, I'm just going to use bevels for now. So go to edge, double click on that, and bevel. I'm going to set the size to something that's not ridiculous, so maybe a 0.05. That's fine. Notice how I've set to 2 segments. So chamfer on or off doesn't really change how it works on this because it's flat. So what we're then going to do, we've got this sort of shape here. We're going to go around here, just pull that down. So we've got this dip, which looks okay. It just looks like a, looks like just a dip at the minute. But if I go back and adjust this so you bevel it again, it's going to completely flatten out. Because it's trying to push against everything, right? Which can work. Now we've got this nice dip. The only problem is, press 3. It doesn't really change how it's going to look. Go back in. We can actually bevel everything again, just to make it nice and crisp. But again, we're lazy. We don't want to, you know, go around and do everything ourselves manually. Double click on all these, click a bevel, set it to something really small like 0.01, 0.005, 6, 7, 8, 0.01. Oh, it wasn't selecting anything. Never mind. Bevel. Why you no work? Bevel. 0.01. Is it already beveled it and I'm just not seeing? It did just bevel it without telling me. Right, bevel. Set it to chamfer off. Fraction really small. Which is fine. So we've got these nice crisp edges, then no matter what happens with this now, it's going to stay main, it's going to be real crisp. So if I then increase this to whatever, we're going to have these like really neat little cutaways like this. And you can go back in and adjust them to however you want. Obviously I'm just going to go in and undo all that. But you can do surface level detail like that. I wouldn't recommend it because you would normally do that with a normal map. But if your object is big enough, say this is part of the building, and you were like, oh, if the building's massive, I don't want to do a normal map because you're going to be seeing it up close, you can do it with this sort of stuff. So hard surface can be helpful, especially if you've set up your low poly. So your low poly is something like this. So if we just turn on to 1, your low poly is just a couple of squares. You would ideally have your high poly be something like, or your low poly be something like this. So you get rid of all these excess edges, like that. And then you get rid of all these as well. Get rid of all these. You'd have it just so it was a lot of flat shapes. Then you would go in, add your extra detail, and then bake that down to a normal map. Other than that, I think that's everything. Unless anyone's got any burning questions, or they've got anything they want to ask me at all. No, I'm guessing that's a no from the group chat. I'm good. Sweet. I'll stop the recording then.